I have an overview for you on the trifocal frame and specifically the personal part of the trifocal frame. Whoops. So why tri? This is the personal one. It's human beings, what people bring to organizations, what's similar or different about them. And then I will have 2 additional recordings, one about the family and group lens, and then the last one on the medical, clinical, organismic. So the nice thing about the trifocal lens is it lifts the need to blame people. It's backed up against theories that drive motivation, our human development, personalities, and finally the employment contract. That is the fit between an individual and an organization. So this lens in the personal context of it centers on what organizations and people do to and for another. So you can see this is quite complex, the personnel characteristics and their effects on organizations. If you start with one individual's personality, you have the internal dimensions that affect from personality out, age, race, physical ability, and then external dimensions, geographic location, the income, marital status, parental status, work experience, all of these things come into play. And then finally, at the organizational level, the dimensions there could be the kind of work that's done, the management status that an individual has, where that workplace is located, seniority in the organization. So you can see that every single individual brings with them a multitude of characteristics, and we all work together in organizations. One of the concepts that Bowman and Deal do not talk about, but that I think is important to cover in terms of the trifocal personal lens, is what is termed as a human margin equation. And it's the idea that everybody has resources, and then everybody has a load to carry, and what you have left over is either positive or negative margin. So it's a systems equation. It's how human beings are all alike. And this is adapted from Swenson, 1992. So resources minus load equal margin. Resources in this case can include skills that we have, time that is available to get something done, emotional stamina, physical strength can be a resource sometimes, financial solvency, social supports that we have, relationships, education. Every one of us has a whole list of resources that we pull from. Some may be different than others, and some resources may give us may add up to more than others do. It's kind of a weird way to say it. And then we have load in our life. So load can be internal factors. So these are our own personal expectations that we have of ourselves, and could be emotional disabilities, how we deal with what goes on around us on the inside. So this kind of load is invisible, although it tends to preoccupy our minds, and most of the time we're the only ones that know about this internal load. And then much more visible are external factors. So work that needs to be done, work that needs to be done around living arrangement houses, and then work at work to earn money, relationship issues, responsibilities. External load could be financial debt, could be health problems, taking care of others, and at any given time, we all have a multitude of loads. The catch here is that our resources should be more than the load that we carry, because we want to end up with margin, and margin is the amount of energy that we can put towards something. If our load is greater than our resources, then we end up in what's called negative margin. So if you think about margin as slack resources we have as individuals, if we don't have that, so the theory behind margin is that there should be something left, those slack resources, so we have energy to pull from. It's what you need, what we need to innovate. We need time or money or support or food to make it work. So negative margin is when we have nothing left for anyone or anything. Many of you know what this feels like. Oftentimes it's right up before a deadline that we cannot give anything else to anybody. Most of us know what negative margin is like in a short period of time, over a short period of time. However, when margin is negative over a long period of time, one of two things usually happens. Either we have a fundamental collapse, breakdown, or we choose voluntarily to change something that is causing our load to be too heavy to carry. So either it will be changed for us, and that usually is not the best thing to happen, or we can look at our load and take something off of our plates, or we can look at the equation and add to our resources. Sometimes you don't have a choice which one to do. Oftentimes in our lives we're feeling pretty marginless in short periods of time, and we do something to add to our resources. We treat ourselves to something, give ourselves a break, spend some time with our kids, go out to dinner, enjoy our friends, go hiking. So there are a lot of ways that we can add to resources that are quick and easy, but you also have to have that sort of time resource, if you will, to add on more resources. That's slack. I think this is a real a handy, I guess, tool to talk with others about, in terms of it's much easier to say no. Let me put it this way. It's much easier to say no to somebody if they understand this human margin equation. And you can say no because I don't have any margin right now. In a couple of weeks, I'll have more margin, and I'm happy to help you out or do this. But right now, there's nothing else I can give. The other concept that I want to talk about, and I think Bowman and Deal talk about this a little. I can't remember now, and I don't have my book right now at home with me, but I've been reading lately about the Johari window. And the Johari window is a tool that we can use to help understand ourselves better, ourselves in relationship to others better, and kind of a group dynamic, if you will. So I believe it's pronounced the Johari window. The Johari window. So this was Joseph Luft and Harry Ingram put together this theory, and so Johari or Johari window. So the window has 4 different areas, and the first area is what's in blue here. It's called the open area. So this is what we know about ourselves and what others also know about us. It's something pretty simple that we share, that we're married, that we have kids, where we work. And then the second area is called a blind spot. So this is something that we don't know about ourselves, but others can easily see it. It may be what others talk about when we're behind our backs, that we have no idea that we have a tick until somebody tells us. The third area is known as the facade, or sometimes it's called a hidden area. And this is what we know about ourselves, but that we don't disclose or tell others. Maybe a secret that we have, and maybe that we don't believe that it's anybody's business to know about that. And then the last area is an unknown area. So this may be something that, some sort of potential that we have not yet discovered. This could also be something that happened when we were quite young that we repressed. In a relationship or in group dynamics, the idea is to make the open or free area as big as possible, because that makes for healthier relationships, to not have a lot of secrets and to know about our blind areas. So this is how we make that first quadrant area bigger. To decrease our blind spot, we ask for feedback. We solicit feedback about how we're doing, how we did, to ask more questions and how we can improve. And then we learn more about ourselves. When it comes to the hidden area, we can shrink this area by disclosing more about ourselves, being vulnerable. And then the unknown area kind of happens when we work with others closely together with a shared discovery. So we learn more about ourselves. Other people learn more about us. We learn that what we don't know about ourselves. So that's really kind of the ideal to work towards in a relationship or even in group dynamics. So I want to explain this picture. This is the Johari window, only they've changed a couple of areas. So the first one is the ideal. This is what we just talked about. This first model, to have a really wide open area. We know more about ourselves because we've solicited feedback and we've disclosed more to others. The area 2, that's called the blind spot in the other two pictures, is now in the lower left-hand area. So if a person has a larger than normal blind spot, sometimes they're called a bull in a china shop, because they have no idea that they do all the talking, that they come across the way that they do in a group situation, that it's not on their radar. So sometimes in managerial terms, this is kind of the teller, the person who tells. And then the third quadrant, which here is in the upper right-hand corner. So this is what our facade, or what we don't tell about others. Don't tell others about ourselves. This is the person, if they have a really large facade area, who asks questions about everybody else. How does somebody else feel about this? If you were me, what would you do in this situation? What happens next? And does not disclose. So this is kind of the interviewer or the questioner. Then finally, the lower right-hand corner, this is the hidden area, or uncovered, if you will. And this person is kind of like a turtle or a clam, hasn't really done much self-discovery, keeps pretty quiet, observes, and that person doesn't know about themselves very much, nor does that person inquire about others. Just some different ways to look at this. Finally, I want to talk about French and Raven's bases of power. I think most of you have heard about French and Raven, but I want to go over their different bases of power quickly. So they have 3 different formal bases of power. And the first one is reward power. This is an ability of one individual over another to provide positive reinforcement for desired behavior. For example, teachers give grades. They have reward power. The second kind of formal power is coercive power, and this is a potential to inflict punishment. This sort of punishment can be physical, or it can be emotional/mental. It can be a look. So when I say inflict punishment, that sort of punishment can be an external punishment, to an individual or an internal punishment. Legitimate power. So this power is based on the authority recognized in accordance with an individual's position in an organizational structure or in a family, if you will, a parent, a boss, somebody who does performance evaluations. And then the last two bases of power fall under personal. The first one is referent power. So this is a function of respect and esteem because of an individual's personal attributes, that they're charismatic and other people are drawn to them. It's a kind of it is a power that people have over others. Finally, there's expert power, which is also a form of personal power, and this is a result of somebody having expertise in a specific area. So that becomes power if others don't have that knowledge. Something interesting to think about in the basis of power is that others only have this power over us if we allow it. There's certain circumstances, yes, if somebody's jailed in terms of not having power, but in almost every other circumstance, we give others these different kinds of power. That's all I have on the personal lens. Thank you so much.